Hello, everyone. Welcome to the latest edition of Coffee with YEA, a podcast where we speak about life's most important questions. My name is Velimir Milosev. I will be your host today. And joining me is Aleksandra Mirimanov. Aleksandra has finished the Academy of Arts in Novi Sad. She's finished 3 years of integrative art psychotherapy, alternative educational program by the Center of Women's Studies in Belgrade, and is active in the area of children's rights. Last but not least, she is the project coordinator for REWOMEN, a project which we will be talking about today. Aleksandra, welcome.
Thank you for inviting me. It is a pleasure to see you again and to speak about the REWOMEN project.
The pleasure is all mine. So a few weeks ago, we had the grand opening ceremony of the European Capital of Culture in Novi Sad, the hometown where I'm from and you live. So this is like a year-long celebration of art. This is a title given throughout Europe to cities. I think for 2022, two other cities have received this title, I think in Luxembourg and Lithuania. And this grand opening, which happened on the 13th of January, which in Serbia is celebrated as the Serbian New Year, actually New Year according to the Julian calendar. And for me, it was like quite spectacular and weird. At the entrance, where a lot of people gathered, for example, we received 2 shots of rakia, an alcoholic drink. This doesn't happen usually. Right? And there was this whole grand, play directed by, a prestigious director and so on. And it was quite a cool feeling to have this happen in Novi Sad. How does it make you feel? And what do you think this means for Novi Sad?
Well, if we are speaking about European Capital of Culture and this program that we will have for this year, I feel hope. I feel hope that some common values that we share with Europe will be recognized more. Actually, the purpose of choosing the European Capital of Culture once a year is actually not just in connecting people in Europe, but in raising awareness on common history and common values. And today is actually the International Holocaust Remembrance Day, when we should remember that Auschwitz concentration camp was liberated by the Soviet Red Army in 1945. And I'm saying this because after all the atrocities done by Nazi Germany, the idea of human rights emerged stronger in the world. And human rights and human dignity are one of the key values in which European Union was founded. And I think this is quite important to recognize in the context of culture. I think this is a good opportunity for Novi Sad to engage various groups of people, especially marginalized ones, and open questions on how to make connections, not just with people in Europe, but with our own neighbors, and to open questions on how can we be together as beings with different sets of values and still be open to recognize our own common values and speak more about them. And I see these 4 bridges and 8 arches of Novi Sad European Capital of Culture as a symbol that they symbolize these connections. I see the potential in this. And I also hope that this will be recognized in the context of European integrations, since Novi Sad is the first city, as I know, outside European Union that was declared European Capital of Culture. So in overall, I feel hope and I see the big potential, but yes.
Yeah, I felt the same hope. And speaking of human rights and common values, this project that you're leading, REWOMEN, is a feminist project. Can you tell us something a bit about it?
Yes. REWOMEN project is supported by Europe for Citizens program. We have a network of partners from 10 countries that are from EU and Western Balkan countries, and 18 organizations. And with the sub-program European Remembrance, we are marking that 20 years ago, European Union declared the Charter on Fundamental Human Rights. So we want to commemorate this in two ways: by creating the international documentary exhibition on women's liberation movement in Europe, and also by organizing international conference titled Legacy of European Women's Liberation Movement. And why women's liberation movement? It is because it is one of the most significant human rights movements in the 20th century, because women are the largest social group discriminated for different fundamental human rights. And women's liberation movement can actually be understood as a collective struggle for equality. It is important to understand that during women's liberation movement, women didn't fight only for all women, but also for all other discriminated social groups.
And just to put it in the context, this women's liberation movement, it's after the first wave of feminism, right?
Yes, this can be considered as a second wave of feminism.
Right.
Yes.
Right. During after the 60s.
What?
After the 60s, right? That's the timeline.
Yes. Yeah. And we are mostly familiar when we speak about women's liberation movement. We are usually thinking about what was happening in America, and this is why this exhibition is about women's liberation movement in Europe, because we are not familiar with that, especially in Western Balkan countries. Yeah. And we have rich history with very important events that we are not. They can be very encouraging to know, but we don't know about them. And yes, we also want to make people know what were women fighting for after they won their right to vote, to earn money, to work and to have education. Because as you probably know, this is the question that is opening all the time. Like, what are women fighting for today?
Right. Yeah. There's the sense that like feminism has done its duty and now we can go on living equally, but that's not really what happened. Like for me, this side of history it is unknown, and you don't learn about it in school or at university level. Do you know of some like particular example, maybe from this region of ours, that made you like want to do this project? Like of a woman who did, or a movement of women who did something extraordinary?
Well, we wanted to mark some topics that we found very specific for women's liberation movement. For example, when domestic violence against women was recognized as a crime and not some private issue, first SOS helplines for women were opened. Also, unpaid labor was for the first time recognized. Housework, taking care of children and elderly people was recognized as unpaid labor of women, and not something that women are just predestined to do. Also, with the topic body politics, we are marking the feminist critique of patriarchal standards of beauty and how women and girls are presented in media, art, etc. We marked abortion rights initiatives. We also marked first women's studies that were established, and feminist theory publications, peace initiatives that happened all around Europe. And what is important to say also is that all these things that happened, women are fighting for those rights even today. And these fights are not won. The fight should be continuous. We have example of what is happening in Poland and so on with the abortion rights. So this is continuous fight.
Yeah, there's a sense that like we see a regression, not a progression in women's rights. Like in Poland, the right to abortion has been restricted and so on. So okay, so a lot of these stories are unknown. But what exactly do you aim to accomplish by highlighting them first in Novi Sad and then later on in other cities? Like, yeah.
Okay, well, the goal is to engage, to reach out to wide range of audience, but especially young girls, women that work in flea markets and so on. Inform them by using simple language about important historical turning points in the history of women's liberation movement, to engage them, inspire, encourage them to continue their own research on these topics on one hand, and also to inspire them to question what does being a woman mean to them. So this is not a exhibition that we will make is not addressed to feminists and other highly educated people. It is, we want to approach to people, to the ordinary people. We also want to reach to teenage boys and older men, because this is all about coming together in solidarity. Bell Hooks said that feminism has no gender, and I agree on that. And my hope is that people will recognize that feminism and women's liberation movement are against patriarchal system, not against men. So this is, and this exhibition will be, we want to go out of the galleries, and we want to go in different outdoor and indoor spaces where we can, where young girls especially will be easily approached.
Right.
And engaged.
And you talk about like engaging teenage boys, young men, young women who maybe don't know exactly what feminism stands for. Do you think feminism is a taboo topic today still in Serbia, in the rest of the Western Balkans? Like, or are there also like topics which make it less relevant today? Like, for example, LGBT rights, LGBT plus rights are also popular right now. Does that make feminism less relevant?
No. But when mentioning the feminism, I think it depends on what we name as feminism. There are various feminisms, and someone can, for example, see Beyonce as a feminist. But there are so many pop icons that are actually profiting on feminism and also excluding some women. So this patriarchal and hierarchical pattern is still there. Right. So it is good to question why artists, for example, like Patti Smith or Annie Lennox, aren't popular among youngsters anymore. Who is deciding on what will be the trend and what will be popular, and who will be declared the next feminist icon? Right. But besides that, what I can see in our country and in the rest of the world is that young girls are encouraged to speak more than ever about various forms of violence. And this is really encouraging. New generations are learning how to be politically engaged and to fight for change in legislations, and also open debates on how to build healthy relationships where women are truly equal, not just in professional, but also in private setting with men. And I think that these engagements are a result of all the campaigns made by women's NGO sector. And I see this as a good way to address all unsatisfactions that women and young girls are facing.
So let's talk about it then. Like, let's imagine you were one of these young women who just saw one of these REWOMEN exhibitions, you know, during the Capital of Culture, and you want to learn more. You know, this is just a starting jumping off point, right? Where do you go? What are some accessible resources on feminism, which is not exactly like discounting all those books which have been written, but you know, they are kind of inaccessible, written by academic people using academic language and so on. Like, where do young people go to inform themselves now?
Well, I would for sure recommend approaching to Center for Women's Studies in Belgrade. They have this alternative program, 2-semester alternative program, and they also have the online program as well. So I think that this would be the most appropriate way to go.
Right. So during the Capital of Culture, during this year in Novi Sad, there will be loads of different activities, and REWOMEN is only a small part of it. What does it feel like to be a part of this like bigger effort to enact social change? Like, this is a huge effort by the whole city, basically, to show that we truly are European, we are ready for the future, and let's do it. How does it feel?
Well, on my personal and professional level, I feel empowered being part of this bigger effort. And I also think that most participants that participate in this project feel the same, because for most of them, this was their first time to engage in a European Union project and to open questions on women's issues. This is also the first European project which Archives of Vojvodina is leading, where connections with institutions and organizations in Europe are made. So most of partner organizations on REWOMEN project didn't engage in topics on women's history before, and this is their first time. And I see that changes are happening from the inside of the institutions and the organizations as well as the outside. So it feels good to be part of this kind of project.
That's actually like good to hear, because you're not actually just educating the public, you're actually growing the capacities of these organizations and institutions in Serbia. That's quite cool to hear. Do you know of some other exhibition that will be presented during this year as part of European Capital of Culture? I know there's like a lot, and maybe not all information is out there, but like, do you know of some that you would recommend us check out?
Yes, well, concerning that, mostly youngsters will watch this. I would definitely recommend INET, that is Socially Engaged Youth Theater Festival, on various topics such as anti-fascism, migrant crisis, feminism, ecology, fake news, and so on. I would recommend Upad, one socially engaged theater festival, where youngsters are actually selectors of theater plays. There will be Know Your Rights Youth Exchange Program, the Autonomous Festival of Women, AFEG, maybe Media Labyrinth exhibition about propaganda manipulation techniques is also something that is, I think, very important to see, not to miss. And also rally, actually, we call it SLET here, Alternative History of Europe. And at this moment, there is an open call for all youngsters to participate. So I invite you to take a look at it.
I hope the invitation is still open once this is online.
Yes, it's just open, and I think it will be open for some time, because
cool.
For this project they need a lot of youngsters.
Cool. I think we will list these projects in the description so people can check it out. That sounds really cool. That's like a lot. I don't even know about most of them, so like it's cool. So okay, let's go back to being the 21-year-old. You're still learning about feminism at the at various educational programs, and now you have internalized this knowledge. there are still prejudices about what the word feminist means and to the public. I want to ask you, like, what does it mean for you? What do you do as an activist, aside from doing this project, to spread the good word of feminism, basically?
Well, if I imagine that I am 21 years old, which means that I am a student at that point, I would probably approach nearest feminist organizations or women's organizations and start learning from them through volunteering and sharing my thoughts and ideas for new projects and so on. So it's hard for me to think about being 21 again, but this is the first thing that comes up to my mind.
Sure. I think it's a good thing, because there you will find like-minded people who will teach you and guide you and offer you a sense of community, let's say.
Also, and with 21, you don't know things enough. You need to learn and need to have a support system.
Yeah, I mean, I'm 25 now, and like imagining what I knew at 21, it feels like a long time ago, and I don't know what I knew back then. So yeah, even that small of a difference is big. So there's this quote by a Nigerian author, and I hope I don't butcher this pronunciation, Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. She said, "We should all be feminists." Do you agree?
Of course, we should all be feminists, and we should because we are all deeply hurt by patriarchal system, men also. And we all need feminist politics in order to heal society from all the trauma. And as Bell Hooks said, feminism is not just a lifestyle or ready-made identity or a role we play. It is about struggle to end sexist oppression.
I think, yeah, you said it right. Like, we should end this kind of oppression and this systemic, like, discrimination that is present everywhere. And our systems, societal systems, we don't think about them as being sexist, like by nature, by intent, but they're just blind to the needs of women, young women, girls, and so on. So yeah, last question. This is a bit more lighthearted. Do you know of any TV show or a movie that you've seen lately that like focuses on this issue, that you would recommend?
Yes, I actually watched a couple of months ago a TV show Made. I wouldn't say anything more. I just think that everyone should look at that, especially men. It can be pretty triggering for women that experienced psychological violence or financial violence. But also, on the other hand, I have, for example, 10-year-old daughter, and I watched with her cartoon Breadwinner and Persepolis, and she's blown away by those cartoons, animated movies, so to say. And they are addressing these issues in a very popular way. So it's recommended also for teenagers and youngsters, and actually for everyone. So Breadwinner, Persepolis, and Maid is something that is first coming up to my mind.
Sure. Those are good recommendations. We will be sure to put them in the description. Thank you, Aleksandra, for your time. It's been a good time talking to you, and I hope we see you again.
Thank you for this interview. It was very interesting to think about the things that you asked me and to speak with you.
Sure, no problem. See you. And everyone who's watching, you can be sure to follow We Balkans on Instagram and Facebook, and to check out the latest news from us. See you soon. Bye bye.